This video covers section 6.2, factoring trinomials of the form x squared plus bx plus c, objective 1. Factor trinomials of the form x squared plus bx plus c. In this section, we will learn how to factor trinomials whose leading coefficient is 1. That means the coefficient of x squared will always be 1 in this section. So one example is x squared plus 8x plus 15. We want to write this as the product of two binomials. When we say write as a product, we are asking to factor. We call these types of trinomials that we're factoring, we call them quadratic trinomials. And it's a polynomial of the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is not equal to 0. A represents the coefficient of the squared term, or the second degree term as we like to say. B represents the coefficient of the linear, or the first degree term, and c represents the constant. In this section, 6.2, we will always let a be equal to 1. And in 6.3, we will let a be something other than 1 and not equal to 0. So in order to get a handle on how we factor trinomials of the form x squared plus bx plus c, we revisit the FOIL method. What we learned how to do before is take something in factored form x plus 3 and x minus 7, and we would multiply it. In this section, we want to start with the trinomial and go the other way and factor it. So what we recognize is that when we FOIL x plus 3x minus 7, the f in the FOIL gives you x times x, which is x squared. The o in FOIL gives you negative 7x. The I in FOIL gives you positive 3x. And the L in FOIL gives us negative 21. We can now see that the negative 21 came from the product of negative 7 and 3. The negative 4 came from the sum of negative 7 and 3. So when we look at x squared minus 4x minus 21, we say that the negative 21 is the product of the two numbers, and the negative 4 is the sum of the two numbers. So this leads us to our technique to factor a trinomial of the form x squared plus bx plus c. We will be looking for a pair of integers whose product is c and whose sum is b. Once we find those two numbers, like the 3 and the negative 7, we just place them in as x plus 3 and x minus 7. And we check it by multiplying the binomials. Example 1. When the c is positive, we're trying to find two numbers whose product is 15 and sum equal to 8. Two numbers whose product is 15 and sum equal to 8. The c value is the product, the b value is the sum. So we run through the list of ways of getting 15, 1 and 15, and 3 and 5. Those are the only pair of factors of 15. We want it to be a positive product, so we could use negative numbers on those as well if they're both negative. But when the sum needs to be a positive, you would never use the negative ones. Only use the positive ones. And 3 plus 5 is 8. There are our pair of numbers. And so we just place them back in as x plus 3 and x plus 5. These are always very easy to check. We FOIL. X times x is x squared, and x times 5 is 5x. 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times 5 is 15. We see that 15 was the product of 3 and 5, and the middle term is the sum of 3 and 5, giving us x squared plus 8x plus 15. Our goal when we factor is to write it as a product of two binomials. Example 2. Factor y squared minus 9y plus 20. The c value is your product. The b value is your sum. We're finding two numbers whose product is 20. And whose sum is negative 9. To have a pair of numbers that multiply together to give us 20, we could use 1 and 20. We could use 2 and 10. 3 doesn't go into 20, but 4 does, and it goes with 5. Those are the three pairs of factors of 20. We want the product to be positive 20, but we want the sum to be negative 9. The only way we're going to get the sum to be negative is if they both are negative. The first pair adds to negative 21, second pair adds to negative 12, and the third pair adds to negative 9. There are our pair of numbers, negative 4 and negative 5. So we write this as y minus 4 and y minus 5. We check this by FOIL. Y times y is y squared, and y times negative 5 is negative 5y. Negative 4 times y is negative 4y, and negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20. The middle terms, they add to negative 9, and the last term was negative 4 times negative 5, which is positive 20. So that checks out, and y minus 4 times y minus 5 is the factorization of y squared minus 9y plus 20. In summary, in these two examples here, when the c value is positive, you have to use the same sign. Positive, positive, or negative, negative. But if the sum needs to be positive, we use two positives. If the sum needs to be negative, then we use the same sign, but we have to use two negatives. This leads us to your practice problem. I encourage you to press pause on your video and work this out and come back when you're ready to see the solution. Now that you've had a chance to work this out, I will work this out with you. Practice 1, factor z squared minus 9z plus 14. We want two numbers whose product is positive 14. And whose sum is negative 9. If it's a positive product, they need to be the same exact sign. 1 times 14, 2 times 7. And that's the only pairs of factors of 14. But if the sum needs to be negative, we have to use negatives on both of our numbers. -1 plus -14 is -15, and -2 plus -7 is -9. There are our pair of numbers, -2 and -7. So we write that as z minus 2 and z minus 7. Checking this, we FOIL z times z is z squared. Z times -7 is -7z. -2 times z is -2z. And -2 times -7 is +14. -7 minus 2 is -9. Z plus 14. Example 3. Now the C is negative. The C value is our product, looking for two numbers whose product is -15, or we say multiplies together to -15 and adds or sums to -2. Now with a negative product, we have to alternate the signs. 1 and -15, but we could also use -1 and +15. 3 and -5, -3 and +5. When we see that the sum needs to be negative, we see if the negative is on the larger one, that's how we make it negative. If it's on the smaller one, then it's positive. So we can go ahead and cross out the negative on the smaller numbers right from the start. And 3 plus -5 is -2. Our pair of numbers are y. Our pair of numbers are 3 and -5, so our factors are y plus 3, y minus 5. So you want to run through the FOIL to check, because it's very common to put the wrong signs, switching the positive and negatives. You check this, y times y is y squared, y times -5 is -5y, 3 times y is 3y, and 3 times -5 is -15. -5y plus 3y is -2y, and -15. So I see that my signs were placed correctly. Our factorization is y plus 3 times y minus 5. Example 4, C is -12, B is +1.